All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to go through some of these different so-called Christmas, excuse me, so-called Christmas traditions and things that you might see, at this time of year. Our people get very, very into this, these different customs because, they are unaware of essentially their own customs, right? And, a lot of these people, they celebrate these different things and not knowing exactly what they go back to. And essentially, they're doing things that are transgressing against the Lord, right? So I don't really know how to have a title really for the lesson, pretty much, but I kind of just want to be going through a couple of uh, I guess you can call it like Christmas items or Christmas traditions or whatever, right? So here I printed off a couple pages from this book. It's called Fossilized Customs, and I kind of just wanted to read through some of these different I guess you can call them traditions, so to speak, right? So, as a matter of fact, let me just start off with this quick precept here, just to break the ice and set the tone. Um, okay, this is Hosea 4:6, and it says, "For my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, and thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy power, Yahweh. I will also forget thy children." Right. So our people are essentially in a state where they do not understand, um, you know, how are they supposed to serve the Lord and why they're in the condition that they're in, because they are um, looking at the ways of the heathen, so to speak, right? Because the ways of the heathen to them are very, very enticing. Okay. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of this here. I want to jump around and then put in some points. And how Ratazal, as always, this will be an edifying lesson. So it starts off by talking about the Druids here. So it says the word Druid, and I looked it up also. So I'll just be going back and forth in some little information that I found here. So it says here the word Druid means oak wise. So oak meaning of the oak tree, because oak trees were sacred to them. This comes from Babylon after the death of Nimrod. The wife/mother Semiramis taught the young Tammuz to go into the groves, Asherim forests, and place a gift on a tree at the winter solstice. This was an offering to his father, Nimrod, who was now the sun. And the sun is spelled S-U-N. So it says the custom of tying a yellow ribbon around an oak tree represents a prayer to the sun. The oak tree was sacred to Odin, right? That's one of those I believe it's one of the Norse gods, if I'm not mistaken. It's also found and popularized in that movie Marvel. Not the movie, sorry. The movie Thor, part of the Marvel franchise. Right? So it says at this point, branches of the trees became to symbolize Nimrod um, so so decorating pagan temples and homes with holly, boughs, wreaths were a custom. The wreaths are branches twisted into circles, so the branches would be associated with the sun, but were also representation of a womb and associated with a birth canal, right? So I'm just gonna um, So now it goes into, like, for example, you have the wreath. So that's that circular symbol that people would see. Normally what people would do is they would hang it up on the outside of their house, right? Um, so this is one of the, so this it goes into some of the ornaments and objects you might see around this time of year and what it actually goes back to. Here it says the round wreath symbolized the sun, at the same time the womb, both thought of as a symbol of fertility to pagans. It says the sun, sun, it says, was male, but his symbol was that of the female. The vertical tree was decorated with male symbols of fertility, testes, balls, yet was the image of the female connecting the heavens to the earth. This consort of Baal was worshipped as Asherah, right? So essentially, when people, decorate those trees, that's what it essentially it symbolized. Those ornaments, those represents, the male testicles. Um, it says the consort of Baal was worshipped as Asherah, Astarte, Artemis, Athena, Isis, Gaia, Nana, Ostron, Ostara, Easter, Aphrodite, Oyster. It says Ashtoreth, Ishtar, Diana, Nunutra, Cres, Nut, Venus, Indrani, goodness, Indrani, Devaki, Tanit, and others. The tree was named Asherah. Well, it's also described. It's also pronounced as what's it called? Ashtoreth, right? So, as a matter of fact, let me get that example. Let me just get one example just to show you. It's in the where is it? Let's go to Kings 11. Okay. Yeah. So all these different names that I just read off here, it's essentially it's a deviation of that same spirit, that same god known as Asherah, right? So different throughout different empires, essentially it changed, right? So everything is like the scriptures say that there is nothing new under the sun, right? So that spirit of that particular god, whatever it is, it might be different in one empire, but it's really the spirit is really just the same, right? And it encapsulates a certain vibration, like so for example, Bacchus and Dionysus is really like that same, different. Bacchus, I believe, was hold on, let me just make sure I get this, properly. Hold on. I believe it's the god of god of wine making and festivity, fertility. And then let me go to Dionysus. It's the same thing. So the one is Greek, Dionysus is Greek, right? Hold on. And then Bacchus is Roman, it says here. Okay. So pretty much this to actually solidify what I'm just saying, the spirit of these gods, it stays the same, but the names simply change throughout different empires. And then this empire is really just recycled and revamped, right? Um, where was I? I was going to Kings because it mentioned Ashtoreth. So this is, I'll just start at verse 1 and read down because all of this is really important also. So this is First Kings 11 and 1, and it says, "But King Solomon loved many strange women together with the daughters of Pharaoh, the women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said to the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in unto them, neither shall they come in unto you, for they will turn your heart, your mind, after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. And for it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect towards the Lord his power, and was his heart as was his heart David his father, right? So David never actually, well, David transgressed, yes, but he didn't go after the ways of these other gods. Like, David was a man after the Most High's heart, right? David simply had taken a wife that was already that already belonged to another man, right? So but essentially David had, he had put down and put these heathens in subjection, right? So it says, this is verse 5, and it says, "For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites." So that Ashtoreth symbol, that goes back to those Hamites, right? So because Nimrod is a descendant of Cush, and Cush is a Hamite, right? So it says, "And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, which he was not fully after the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord Yahweh, as David his father." Then so this is an example of his transgression. So it says, "Then Solomon did build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives burnt incense and sacrifice unto the other gods," right? "And the Lord Yahweh was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned away from the Lord God of Israel, which appeared unto him twice and commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not which the Lord was commanded." So he didn't adhere to the commandments, right? Because we're not supposed to have all these other gods and worshiping these other gods, right? All these other gods are simply idols, right? So that was Solomon's mistake here, right? She's supposed to come under you. You're not the other way around, right? So he began to, essentially, build high places and it pays some sort of tribute and veneration to these other gods, right? So, okay, where was I? So I'm just going to continue reading here. Okay, so here it goes into the ornaments and the tree. And it says, the tree, the ornaments on the Asherah tree had specific meanings to them. The tree is a phallus, the male reproductive member. The little balls are testicles, and the tinsel represents the semen of the deity being worshipped. Hold on, let me look that up actually. I didn't. Tinsel. Okay, so just to get an idea of so tinsel is spelled Tinsel. So the tinsel is a type of decorative material that mimics the effect of ice, consisting of thin strips of sparkling material attached to a thread. So essentially, it's those little flowery things. Not really flowery things per se. It's that thing that you wrap around the tree basically, and it's like it's very glittery. You can look it up. It's called tinsel, Tinsel, right? And it'll give you, and then it show yeah. So so say for example, like for Brothers Who Are in the World, and you did this, people would wrap this stuff around the tree, along with the ornaments. So you had the ornaments, and you had the lights, and then you had this tinsel. So like this little foil paper looking thing, or it comes in different colors, and you wrap that around the tree to give it that image like it was outside and all that kind of stuff, right? So just for edification's sake, and it says, the tinsel represents the semen of the deity being worshipped during the late Middle Ages. The little balls were interpreted by Christians to be witch balls borrowed from witchcraft to attract then capture evil spirits. The wreath was, excuse me, the wreath was used to represent male deity, the sun, yet the womb symbol. So the male deity's symbol incorporated feminine features, while the female sign incorporated the masculine features. Similarly, a witch is seen utilizing male characteristics of the pointed hat and the broomstick, both male features. So here it goes into. So let me get a precept actually before I continue. Let's go to Jeremiah. All right, so this is Jeremiah 10, verse 1, and it says, "And hear the word of the Lord Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them, for the customs of the people are vain." So empty. So it says, "For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, and work of the hands of a workman with an axe, and they deck it with gold, with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not," right? So this is, giving you an understanding of where these customs go back to, right? And we're not supposed to partake in these customs because ultimately we have our own culture. But like it says in Jeremiah also, seek the old paths and walk therein, right? Those are not customs that the Lord essentially gave us to cut a tree and to put it up in our house, deck it with gold and silver, and and wrap it with fake looking ice and all that. Like, all these different customs are vain. All that Diwali crap, like those Elamites, they celebrate this here in Canada. Those customs are vain, right? Easter, with the bun, a lot of you Israelites like to celebrate that. All that is also vain. And people don't actually question these things. Like, this is, I remember speaking with this one Jake. It was around that time, and I asked him straight up. I said, "Yo, do bunnies even lay eggs?" Because a rabbit, if you like, that's common sense, right? And I asked him, "Yo, like, do rabbits lay eggs?" And he couldn't answer, right? But there's a spirit. There's now you show it shows you there's a heavy enchanting spirit over this place, over this kingdom, with these different idols, and people are not even aware of it, right? Because you have a plethora of information, right? Like, knowledge has increased, like it says in I believe that's Daniel, right? So you have a kingdom that has a plethora of different information, and then there is still, and the irony is that people are not aware of these things, and even more, some people are aware and just continue to practice it, right? So, 1 second. Okay, let me keep going just a little bit more. So it says, 1 second. Okay, so this is going into now the ivy. So it says the green ivy and holly were common symbols of Saturn, the Roman deity. So again, all this is tied to Roman, Greek gods, Egyptian gods, going back to as far as Nimrod, right? Um, Either believers thought that they decorated their homes with these trappings, they would appear conf- to be conforming to the pagan culture around them, as everyone was observing Saturnalia, right? So that was the ancient festival that took place around the winter solstice in the Roman Empire, right? So, and that also came with a vibration of revelry, of drinking, of a turning upside down of the social order, right? It's a very lewd, debaucherous, essential festival, right? And that's not part of our customs, right? So it says, thus they would blend in appear to be a part of the culture and would suffer less persecution. As time passed, the custom became a part of their own family traditions, and you will see wreaths and Asherim trees in their assemblies and homes today. Now, those of us that don't join in with the celebration are considered to be freaks and Scrooges. Now, centuries later on, the doctrinal offspring of those who might have otherwise been persecuted for avoiding these pagan traditions, believe that we do not adopt them into a cult, right? And cult just goes back into is a root for cultivation, right? So cult is not a bad word, but they're being cultivated in wickedness, right? That's why the Lord said in Jeremiah also, um, let me get it. Jeremiah 2. This is Jeremiah 2, verse 21, and it says, "Yet I have planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?" So we took on different customs that were not our own, and eventually we became a bunch of degenerate plants, right? The Lord created us to be a noble vine because, we have these laws, statutes, and commandments to make us, to essentially keep us whole, keep us noble, and this is what sets us apart from these other nations. So this is, let me just get, as a matter of fact, hold on. There was a point they made here in regards to, they said family traditions, and then seeing these things, eventually it trickled down into the other generations. Hold on. So, before I read this, let me go to Judges. Okay, this is Judges. I'll start at okay, I'll start at verse 2, and then I'll read down. So this is Judges chapter 2, verse 2, and it says, "And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their gods shall be a snare unto you. And it came to pass, when the angel of the Lord spake these words unto all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept, and they called the name of the place Bochim, and sacrificed there unto the Lord. When Joshua had let the people go, the children of Israel went every man unto his inheritance to possess the lands," right? This is after the days of Joshua, and then they realized all the tribes were allocated their different portions of the land, right? So further on it says, "And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord he did for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old, and they buried him in the border of his inheritance of the Timnatheriz in the mount of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gash." Here's the point that I really want to hit. It's verse 10. "And there also that the generation were gathered unto their fathers, there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim And they forsook the Lord and the God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. Oh, here, hold on, before I comment. Let me read verse 13. It says, and they forsook the Lord Yahweh, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. Right. So it shows you, there was a generation that rose up, and they did not know about the great works that the Lord did when they took Israel out of Egypt and during the time of the wilderness, right? So a new generation, rose up, and they did not know about those ways and know about those works that the Lord did. And eventually, those idols that they were supposed to get rid of, those ites that you read about in, I think it's in Deuteronomy 7, your not your Moabites, your not Ammonites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, so on and so forth. All these different ites, these different Hamitic nations, they were supposed to get rid of them, but instead I think they believe they kept them not tribulation. They kept them tribute, right? So they were essentially like a servant unto them. Instead of getting rid of them, their gods now became a snare, and it led to this downfall of Jake, becoming very what's the word I'm looking for? They became very susceptible unto these different other gods, and they began wandering after the ways of the heathen, like I just read in Jeremiah, right? So a good example of this, if you take this exact example and you apply it to today, it's the exact same thing. So for example, like, you have a family, right? You might have maybe, two children. Like, say for example, you listen and you did not know the ways of the Lord. We grow up as children. You might have a brother or a sister, and then you go to school, and you may not have known so much about Christmas and all these different practices, but because of the time of the year in this different captivity where we are, you see all these different children, they're celebrating this, and you get enticed to do it, right? And your child does not know those ways, and doesn't know those ways are detestable. So they bring, they mingle amongst these different children, and then the children, you know um it becomes a snare unto them, right? Without them actually knowing the proper conduct, and of knowing to be able to differentiate, oh, this is detestable to the eyes of the Lord, right? They don't have this thing in mind because their parents didn't know, right? So it shows you the importance of actually knowing the ways of the Lord and knowing his commandments and statutes, right? Because that prevents, this constant, I don't want to say the word downfall, but it's a lamp unto your feet, essentially, like this says in Psalms. That's the point I'm really trying to drive home here, right? To know that, okay, this is profane, and this is acceptable, right? It gives you proper guidance, especially in the times that we live in, right? In this captivity that we live in, with all these different abominable practices, right? Paul says in Corinthians, for example, I've espoused you to one husband, right? So you may be chaste. That chaste meaning to be essentially pure, right? He doesn't want us following these other different, customs and these different gods, and because this is Babylon, the great. So it has an amalgamation of all these different gods of these different kingdoms, and people partake in these things, especially our people, without knowing the different origins and how these things are cause you to transgress against the Lord, right? So, and it also shows you, in a proper household, the children are supposed to learn about the guidance, of the Lord, and keeping the commandments at a certain age, right? Like, I did a lesson recently in regards to Tobit, instructing his son Tobias, and essentially he's kind of giving him some spiritual counsel, spiritual game, in how to actually keep the commandments after he's gone, right? After he passes, right? That's real generational wealth. It's not like some land and some money in your pocket, and you don't know how to actually please your power, right? Jake doesn't understand that, the importance of that, I should say, as well. So, um, let me just get a precept here in, what's that, Proverbs. This is Proverbs 12, verse 26, and it says, "The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the ways of the wicked seduceth them," right? So these different customs, these vain customs, are seducing unto our people. And essentially, we're in a captivity that, these different customs, these wicked, abominable customs, are a snare unto our people. And then those children grow up to be adults, and then they have children, and because they don't know any better, they pass those abominable practices onto their children, right? So, and it's a cycle that continues, right? So you have a bunch of ungodly children that are uncultured, that are a bunch of wild olive branches, right? They're not been trimmed, they haven't been pruned, right? And that's what actually keeps us, this word, if you really think about it, this word is really what keeps us, prune, keeps the soil, rich. It keeps us fertilized. It keeps us, refreshed, like a plant, basically, right? And, it keeps the dead leaves off. It keeps all these abominable works off of us, right? Because we know that these customs and these practices are vain. So, um, I wanted to get in a little bit more, but I kind of went, man, yeah, kind of rambled on for quite a bit, but I think I'll just end it off here. This. Hopefully, this lesson was edifying, but I kind of just wanted to touch on some of these different things, right? But I guess I'll just close it out. But hopefully you found this lesson a little bit edifying. And I'd just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakak, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us His truth. Till next time, I say, Shalom.